Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company. Great to have you. We're always honored that you're letting us be a part of your day, and we never take it for granted. Coming up later in the program, we're gonna reward you for letting us in. At 8:05, Dr. Matthew Spalding from the D.C. Hillsdale College campus talk about America 250 and the sort of celebration that we're going to have here, celebrating our country for the next year. 8:35, Senator Marsha Blackburn on what she'd like the Senate to take up with regard to denaturalizing the Somali fraudsters in Minneapolis. That's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor with Cassie Smedile. Good morning, Cassie.
Good morning, Larry.
As we just mentioned, Maryland is conducting a reassessment of properties, homeowners, people on fixed incomes. If you're retired, doesn't matter. If the market value of your home has gone up, if the government in Annapolis and the bureaucrats have decided that your home is worth more, doesn't matter. You're not selling it. You're never going to sell. Doesn't matter. They want your tax dollars. This is taxing money that you haven't actually gotten, that you've never actually received. They were planning on increasing property taxes in Fairfax, Virginia last year, and you'll remember this passionate woman at that meeting, cut 5.
My house was built in 1944. I have a 1944 kitchen. Guess what? You said my house is worth almost $800,000. If I put my house on the market today, and if I don't get $800,000, will you give me back the money that I've been paying on the taxes?
Good question. And if that's happening in Virginia, you know that it's times 10 in Maryland. John MYRICK is a Republican running for Maryland governor this year, and he joins us now. And, John, thanks for joining us. You've been making a big deal out of this, and you're a bit of a voice in the wilderness because you know how things go in Annapolis. The Democrats do this kind of thing, and they count on no one paying attention.
Yeah, thanks for having me again this morning, Larry. I appreciate it. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. They do this all the time in Annapolis. They assume that Marylanders are just going to continue to take it and not say anything and not argue the point, which is unfortunate because a lot of times they're right. Marylanders do sit back and take it.
But the root of this problem is they're now having to come up with creative ways to make money because Wes Moore and the Democrats have spent us into a deficit. This is after they inherited a surplus from Larry Hogan.
Yeah, absolutely. A $5.5 billion surplus blown through in less than 2 years. $3.5 billion in deficit last year, the largest tax increase in Maryland history. And then you come back this year with a budget that's $1.4 billion in the hole again in an election year, and then wonder how you're going to close that gap. And you're absolutely right. They have to come up with new and creative ways to try to hide these revenue-generating increases from the public. And I guess they thought this was another one of those ways.
Yeah, you think George H.W. Bush probably wished he had been so creative when he said, no new taxes. I'm just going to give you a new assessment, a new fee. Because that's what Wes Moore's basically said. I'm not going to raise your taxes. And instead, they're just hiding it through this, right? Yeah. He said
the same thing last year, too, when he was in a $3.5 billion deficit, if you remember at the beginning. And he's still claiming that he gave 94% of Marylanders a tax break last year. If anybody who's gone to motor vehicles or tried to get their car run through the emissions testing knows better.
Yeah.
Fees are insane. And you're right. Yeah, fees are insane. These no new taxes thing he's promised again this year, is not going to stand.
Right. Also, by the way, there's a huge number of homeowners in Maryland who they have their property taxes paid by their mortgage company. So they just take money in escrow. And so they don't really see it. Mm-hmm. So suddenly their mortgage statement is going to be higher because of the escrow number increasing. And they're not going to know where it came from. This is, again, a sneaky way to do this. John Myrick, can Marylanders appeal this? What's the process to try to get this assessment reassessed?
Yes, and Larry, I strongly encourage every Marylander who's gotten an assessment to appeal this process. You can go onto the State Department of Assessments and Taxation's website, and they have an online appeal process. You don't have to write it in. You can just appeal it online. You can type in your explanation as to why that you think that your assessment is exaggerated or inflated.
That's right.
And make them explain it to the public. And I encourage every single Marylander to do that. If we flood the State Department of Assessments and Taxation with these appeals, they will have no alternative but to actually have to answer these.
That's right. Clog up the works there. And when you give your explanation, keep it clean, folks. All right. Stay classy out
Absolutely.
there, Maryland. John, while we've got you, there's also another hidden tax that Wes Moore has levied on you. This one comes in the form of higher electricity costs. And this you can point to Wes Moore. His policy is to sort of, basically outlaw the internal combustion engine because, the state of Maryland is going to single-handedly change the temperature of the planet. But at the same time, we've got, there's a supply side to this. So he's demanding an increase in demand by trying to make it so unaffordable to have an internal combustion engine. So you got to get an electric car. But in the meantime, the supply of electricity is decreasing in the state of Maryland. That's a recipe for outrageous rates.
Absolutely. I mean, and PJM, the company that administers the power grid here on the Mid-Atlantic region, said in a report recently that under Moore's administration, electric costs in Maryland have gone up 1,012%. And they directly attribute that to his bad energy policies.
112%.
No, 1,012%, Larry. 1,012%. And that came straight from the people that administer our power grid.
Absolute insanity. Absolute insanity.
And it's because of these bad energy policies.
Hold on, John Myrick. I'm sorry. We're all based on facts, and it's fine for you to have your opinion, but we got to make sure that our listeners get the facts. Wes Moore has a plan for windmills. There's windmills in the Chesapeake Bay. That's going to solve it, right?
Right, just like the windmills that he wanted to put off of Ocean City. By the way, the power that was going to be generated from those windmills was not even coming to Maryland; it was going to Delaware. So how is that benefiting Marylanders? Just like the Piedmont Reliability Project that he claims he's opposing, but he hasn't stopped to run power lines across Maryland properties to supply data centers in Virginia. Not 1 watt of that power comes to Maryland.
John Myrick is our guest Republican candidate for governor in Maryland. Of course, we have a primary coming up before we know who the actual nominee is going to be. But, listen, it's always a tall order for a Republican to win in Maryland, just as it's a tall order for a Democrat to win in Alabama. That's just the reality of the situation. But we've seen in our lifetimes 2 different governors win, Republican governors win, and it's because their opponent, the Democrat incumbent, has just been that nuts. They've gone that far.
Absolutely.
And do you think that's what you've got with – because, again, Wes Moore has this PR machine that makes him look like such a nice, smiley, wonderful guy. But if you actually look at his policies, it's a disaster.
You're absolutely right, Larry. And, I have absolutely no doubt that Wes Moore is probably a very nice gentleman, one-on-one in person. However, every time the man opens his mouth, it's a lie. And Marylanders, Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated voters all are starting to realize that, and they all see that. Yeah. This man can't find the truth with both hands and a flashlight. And his policies are absolutely burying Marylanders, and every Marylander is feeling the pain. And I think you're right. He is a recipe for change. Just like when Bob Ehrlich became governor, just like when Larry Hogan became governor.
That's right.
We've had two Republican governors out of the last 4 governors of Maryland. So it can be done. And this guy is just the gift that keeps on giving because he has not made a right decision since he's been in office.
If you want more information about John Myrick, you want to go to the website. Get ready for it. You might want to talk to the team about a shorter website. It's
yeah, I know. It's
John Myrick for mdgovernor.org. That's a mouthful. That's like a whole sentence.
It is.
But if you use any search engine and say John Myrick, Maryland, and you'll get to the right place. And also, listen, you're going to run your campaign the way you got to. I'm just going to say here, personally, I'm not going to afford Wes Moore this assumption that he's a nice guy. He puts on a good show, and he does nice TikTok videos. But nice guys don't lie. Nice guys don't divide people along racial lines. And nice guys don't steal my money. So,
Well, that's true. That's true.
We'll leave it there. John Myrick, I'm sure we'll talk a lot between now and the primary. Thanks for joining us.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Don't worry, Virginia. We haven't forgotten about you. Your legislative session begins tomorrow in Richmond. And yes, Democrats with a new governor and a much larger majority in both chambers, well, they're ready to wreak havoc on your life. Just wait till you hear some of the things that they want to do. First of all, they want 4 proposed amendments to the Virginia Constitution. If approved by both chambers, they would then go to voters statewide. They would, as they like to call it, protect abortion access. What does that even mean, protect abortion access? So they want, this is the oldest legislative body, going back to the House of Burgess in Virginia, is now taking up a constitutional amendment to the Old Dominion to protect what they're calling abortion access. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's exactly the question they hope you won't ask, first of all. And second, it's a total political play because they've seen other states do this exact thing, and they know it brings out the extreme.
They also want a constitutional amendment enshrining same-sex marriage. They also want a constitutional amendment that will automatically, without question, restore voting rights for felons when they complete their sentence. And they, of course, want that mid-decade redistricting ahead of the 26 congressional elections, all 4 of them. Do you remember Abigail Spanberger running on those 4 issues?
That didn't come out in her I'm Just a Mom.
Look at me. I shop at Talbot's. Gosh, I'm just going to get stuff done. I'm so busy I don't have time to brush my hair. Yeah.
See, I'm just going to be this little placeholder governor.
It's going to be ugly. And by the way, Dan Helmer, representing Virginia's 10th district, that's portions of Fairfax County, he wants to inscribe in the education code a provision specifically about January 6th. Listen to this. He wants a bill that will require schools to describe January 6, 2021, an insurrection at the United States Capitol as an unprecedented violent attack on United States democratic institutions, infrastructure, and representatives for the purpose of overturning the results of the 2020 presidential election. Dan Helmer wants that in the education code. You know what? I would almost entertain that if Mr. Helmer could we also have something written into the biology books in Virginia schools that describes scientifically the truth about when life begins? Mm-hmm. Because human life begins at conception. That is a scientific and biological fact. Shouldn't that be taught in our schools? And if not, why not, Mr. Helmer?
Good suggestion. That's also, while we're on the topic of science and facts, let's talk about what is a woman, what is a man. Let's go ahead and teach that in schools.
Love that in my science class.
Sure.
Yes,
I can
absolutely.
See both. Yeah.
It doesn't end there. HB1 is going to be a minimum wage increase in the model of California. HB5 will be a sick leave mandate that will force small businesses now to provide sick leave. And you got to hire somebody to replace the person on sick leave, and then what do you do with that person when the person comes off sick leave? And HB 188, new income tax. HB 2, and that's specifically on investors and entrepreneurs. HB 243, 100% tax on all federal benefits, which, by the way, that's just a money grab, is what that is. If you're on federal benefits, now you're having to pay 100% taxes on that if you can afford to pay that, which is, by the way, what's it going to do? It's going to increase. People are going to complain and go back to the federal government and ask for more money. But, Richmond wants their share. SB 32 is going to be mandatory union membership. So say goodbye. Say goodbye to right to work in Virginia. And finally, SB 66 will be an increase in your sales tax. Because, one thing I've learned about Virginia, especially when a Democrat's in charge, taxes just aren't high enough.
We just need more money.
Yeah, they're going to fix that problem. There you go. That's your moderate Talbots, just regular soccer mom. Do we still call them soccer moms? Maybe they're lacrosse moms. Abigail Spanberger and the Democrats ready to ruin your lives, Virginia. No, we didn't warn you. No, wait. Yes, we did.
Right.
We warned you every day. It's 7:23. Coming up, it's our 7:30 segment. Always a good one. Apparently, shockingly, there's non-citizens voting in the state of Michigan. Now, I know this comes as a shock to you because we're told this never happens. This would never, ever, 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 ever happen. So we'll get to the bottom of it because we know this doesn't happen. Non-citizens voting in Michigan. All right, keep it here.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:36 on this Tuesday morning in your nation's capital. Coming up at 8:05, Dr. Matthew Spalding, one of our favorites, of course, from the Hillsdale College D.C. campus. We're going to talk about a big birthday this year, America's 250th, and what WMAL and Hillsdale are going to be doing about it all year long. Really excited about that. And then at 8:35, Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. She's putting forth a bill that would denaturalize Somali or any naturalized citizen who has come here from a foreign land and has now defrauded the American taxpayer through government programs. That's coming up at 8:35. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Cassie Smedile. Good morning, Cassie. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Larry. Glad to keep Julie's seat warm while she's getting back to health.
Yes, for those of you who didn't hear the show yesterday, Julie is on the mend from a health scare. It's going to be a bit of a long haul for her, I think, to get back in the saddle again. So if you're so inclined, would love your support, your prayers, definitely. Any financial support you can give to the family, just go to givesendgo.com/Julie Gunlock. Givesendgo.com/Julie Gunlock. And I'm serious about the prayers. Go there. Let us know that you're praying for her. There's a little button there so you can let everyone know that you're praying, and put a little note in there referencing the radio station, just so we can keep track. And then once you do that, you'll get updates on her progress from Give, Send, Go. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Hey, earlier in the program, we talked about the fact that liberal intellectuals at The Nation magazine have finally acknowledged the obvious truth that we all knew, that Antifa is a real thing. But, of course, they've now reached the point in the gaslighting process where they're saying, sure, Antifa is real, but they're awesome. That's their whole cover story there. But forever they told us it doesn't happen. It doesn't. There is no Antifa. There is no Antifa. We've got another strain of that story now. The thing that they tell us never happens. Like, we want to be able to check people's photo ID when they go to vote, because we think the vote is pretty valuable in this country. And at the very least, you should prove that you are who you claim to be when you go to vote. We want people to prove that they're citizens when they register to vote. Otherwise, it makes it very easy for there to be a lot of fraudulent activity, either non-citizens who have registered to vote and then maniacal political groups that will just vote on their behalf, or possibly even worse, those non-citizens going and voting when they are not eligible to vote. That we would like to protect the voting process, but we're told, Cassie Smedile, all the time, there is no voter fraud. We don't need to do that. Why do we need to prove citizenship when you register to vote? Because nobody does that, right? Isn't that what they always say?
Mm-hmm. Well, and of course, Larry, that you're racist for even suggesting it, which I Always love that argument.
That's
As
right.
most people are like, what are you talking about? I have an ID. What are you talking about?
That's right.
But yes.
So in the spirit of this thing never, ever happening, and there's no reason to put any precautions in place because it's a thing that never happens, just like how Antifa doesn't exist, I bring to your attention, regrettably, Macomb County, Michigan. Let me tell you something about Macomb County, Michigan. Statewide elections are won and lost in Macomb County, Michigan. If you go back and look at the 24 presidential election, you track how many times the presidential candidates were in Macomb County, Michigan. Wayne County is Detroit. We already know how Wayne County is voting. And the Upper Peninsula and up the rest of Michigan, Grand Rapids, the western shore over there, well, the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, but the western coast of Michigan, Central, we know how that part of the state is voting. It's voting like any other rural, pro-American part of any state. Macomb County is that it's it's Loudoun County. It is wealthy, it is upper middle class, and it's a mix. It's the purplest of all counties. That's Macomb County, Michigan. And Macomb County clerk has now just put out a press release expressing his alarm that he has discovered non-citizens in the jury pool right now. Now, how does one get into the jury pool, Cassie?
Isn't it by your voter registration or where you're? Isn't it something? Yeah.
Well, actually, it's actually from casting a ballot. So if you go and vote, that automatically triggers the jury pool system in, I believe, every state in this country. If not
I didn't
most
know it was
states.
actually through voting. Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Macomb County official calling for changes at the state level after he said he found evidence of non-citizens voting in Michigan due to a lack of oversight in the state's driver's license application process. They told me this doesn't happen.
No. Fake news.
Yeah. After checking his file, he said he found that 14 of the 239 non-citizens had been registered to vote at some point. These are 239 non-citizens that are in the jury pool now. Typically, when a non-citizen is selected for jury duty, they will simply show their green card to court staff to have their name removed from the list. But and I love that. So, I'm sorry, I can't serve on the jury because I'm not a citizen. But it doesn't stop them from voting as a non-citizen. Yeah. Wow. Currently, anyone who applies for a license in Michigan is automatically registered to vote unless they go through the process of specifically opting out. And again, this is all by design. This is what the Democrats want. They don't want to. They always say, we just want to make it easier to vote. No, they don't. They want to make it easier to register to vote so there's more ballots out there that can then be misused and misappropriated.
You're exactly right. When I lived in D.C., it was an interesting thing because you're also automatically registered to vote when you go to the DMV in D.C. And that was the first time I had experienced that. It's not the case as far as I remember in Missouri, my home state. And I remember thinking, how interesting. This is, ostensibly to increase voter engagement, but really it's to increase their desired voter engagement.
That's right. It does not increase voter engagement. It increases voter registration. And then when you add to that the ubiquity of sending out ballots to people, whether they ask for it or not, because they do 100% ballot mail-in, and then add to that the drop box equation. Sure. You've got all these live legal ballots just floating out there at nursing homes, at convalescent centers, at hospice, in apartment buildings, in college dorms, all stacking up at the front desk. You grab a big pile of them. You mark them off. You stick them in the ballot box.
Who's to know?
I mean, I'm just saying that would be an easy way. But, of course, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even said that because that never happens, Cassie. Those sorts of things just don't happen.
I was about to say, you're talking like a conspiracy theorist today, Larry, except what normally happens with a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. Yesterday's conspiracy is today's front page news. It's 7:43.
Later this morning on the Chris Plant Show, Democrats have taken to the streets, offering one another advice and counsel.
You're pathetic! Burn something!
9 a.m. on WMAL.
Well, now it's time for one of my favorite segments of the morning. It's the Cassie Smedile's Thank God I Don't Live in the District of Columbia segment.
Very aptly named as I'm reading through this. Yes.
Well, you've just recently moved to Virginia, of course. You've freed yourself from the bondage that is the People's Republic of D.C.
Yes, although I will say that was a very depressing segment a couple segments ago where you talked about all the new things that Abigail Spanberger's doing.
Yeah.
So, but still better than this. Yes.
The D.C. Department of Parks and Recreation has now announced the lottery information sessions to help you get ready for summer camp. Yeah, they're going to teach you all about how to set up your DPR account, your residency validation, talk about the reduced rates you get if you register now early, so you can qualify and put your name into the mix for the summer camp lottery. Now, think about this for a second. With the taxes that you pay in D.C. and the money that the D.C. government gets and spends on everything, why in the hell do you have to win the lottery to send your kid to summer camp?
Mm-hmm.
Why you would why? So you dot all the I's, you cross all the T's, you put the money, you're ready to register, you're ready to pay. Usually you would think this is I understand there are limited places, so it's first come, first serve. You know, you got your stuff together, you go and you get your kid into summer camp here. No. You got to get your lottery ticket and just hope for the best.
Because it's got to be equitable, Larry.
Is that what it is? It's
yeah, it literally says right here to create a more fair and equitable system for summer camp.
What is more fair than first come, first serve?
Totally. So instead, you are going to cross your fingers that not only that you get into camp, but hopefully you get into a camp with your kid's best friend, because otherwise you got to show up to camp by yourself or forget having a carpool option.
And during a week that it doesn't conflict with your vacation
With
plans.
your vacation or with any number of whatever activities. And my favorite, there was one comment on this that said, there are enough spots for everybody. It's just a matter of location. So, by the way, you better hope you don't get into the camp across town, because that's going to suck to try and get your kid to camp.
Yeah.
Dodging traffic.
You live in Tenleytown, but you got to go down to Anacostia.
Because that's what you won in the lottery.
I love the Q&A on the website for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Will I have a better chance of getting a slot if I submit earlier? What should the answer be? The obvious answer should be, of course.
Sure.
You think ahead. You're prepared. You got your stuff together. You put your application in early. You'll get a better. The answer, of course, is no. All lottery registrations have the same chance of being chosen for enrollment. So if you're organized, you've thought this through, you care enough to get in there, and you put it in, you've got the same chance of getting a slot of your choice for summer camp in D.C. than the person who at the last minute and procrastinated and just said, oh, yeah, what the hell, let's just stick it in. And then that person's going to get the prime spot. Because equity.
Equity. It's got to be fair and equitable. And there's something about this that in theory, save the keywords, the buzzwords and stuff. You're like, okay, they probably have an overrun of kids and they're trying to figure out how to do this. But of course, DC has to DC it by making it a really complicated system. I mean, I tried to get a pass to just be able to go to the community center once, and it was harder than going to the DMV. So it's not an easy system. It's like government bureaucrats giving contracts to their friends who they don't work. You thought Obamacare was bad. Like, I think the DC Park and Rec system is worse.
Although the good news about this whole process is, at the end of the day, once the kids, you do go through the registration process, you do get into the lottery, you get your slot in the lottery, and your 12-year-old goes to summer camp, at the end of the summer, your 12-year-old is registered to vote. It's 7:53.